consent calendar?
Chair Edwards.
Chair, please.
This is Director Evans. I'd like to pull
Okay,
item number 3.
Number 3. Okay.
Chair,
Director
I'd like to pull item 4 for a couple of questions.
4. All right.
Chair Edwards,
Yes.
I'd like to pull item 2, please.
2. Let's make it a meeting. All right. 2. We got 1 left. Oh, y'all gonna let that one pass? Okay. Consent calendar. Do I have a motion? Do anyone from the public want anything from the consent calendar?
I see 2 raised hands, but they may have still be raised from the oral communications.
Okay, you want to check with them, make sure.
They have both put their hands down.
Thank them, thank you. Okay,
Chair Edwards, I'd like to make a motion to approve number 1.
Second.
Okay, we have a motion to approve number 1 from Evans, and second, I think I heard Riley trying to, Director Riley. Okay, roll call vote on 1.
Director Byrne?
Yes.
Director Potter?
Aye.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Hoffman?
Yes.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Byrne?
Aye.
Director Edward?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. Motion passed 7-0. Let's start down the line. Item number 2. What's your question, Director Hoffman?
Yeah, thank you, Chair Edwards. The staff report that's included in our package tonight varies significantly from that which was considered by the administrative committee. It doesn't go into the process that had been, doesn't detail the process the way that the administrative staff report did. And so I'm concerned that the board is not being provided with the information as a minimum that the administrative committee saw on this, because there's serious concerns about the process, how it was done, and how and this seems to not even go anywhere near what was discussed at the administrative committee meeting. So I'm at a loss to understand how this item is on the agenda as such when the administrative committee deliberations were totally different.
Director Hoffman, General Manager, you want to answer?
Yeah, thank you. Thomas Christensen is with us tonight. Thomas, if you can unmute.
Yeah, I'll start from the beginning. As I spoke with the administrative committee about this item, this item is related to the district's mitigation program. We rescue steelhead from the Carmel River, and they're taken to the rearing facility. We've been doing that for many years during the dry season. And in order to do that, we have to have certain permits. And one of those permits is a Section 10(1)A permit from the federal agencies that allow us to rescue fish and rear them. And we secured that permit, and in that permit are special requirements which require us to count adult steelhead in the Carmel River.
Excuse me, Thomas. I don't know, from my perspective, if the board wants to hear the background on the permitting, that's fine, continue, but for expediency's sake, because I know the chair likes to move it along, if you could start with the process of going out to bid and how that was done, and how the contractor apparently was selected, although this item doesn't seem to indicate one was. So if you can start from there, unless other directors
Okay.
object. And
Okay.
kind of other directors may want to hear the background, but I'm
Okay.
more interested in the process.
Okay, so the way this worked was we put out a request for bids on July 24th. It was posted in the Monterey Herald, and it went out to multiple bid boards that are electronic. One of the central one was called the Central Coast Building Exchange. And they're linked with the Golden State Plan Service Network, which posts bids to all these other branches of these builder exchanges, so that the bid essentially gets aired to a large region, both Northern, Central, and Southern California. We received no bids because there's only 2 people that I know of now that actually do this kind of work in the state of California and in Oregon. One is Fish Bio, and the other one is Kramer out of Oregon. Fish Bio was interested in bidding on the project. However, they got nervous about the guarantee that the weir could sustain 3,000 cubic feet per second. In speaking with them, they said they don't guarantee any of their weirs, any that they've put in, because they're subject to debris loading. And it's basically, if this weir was installed, it would be the water district staff duty to clean the weir and manage certain things associated with high flow events. So that's a little bit outside of their control. And so they said they're in this business for the long haul. They said they would definitely step up to the plate if they felt that there was something they did that was a problem that caused a failure in the fish counting weir, and kind of look at this as kind of a partnership, but they wouldn't guarantee it for any kind of flows.
So Thomas, you mentioned that in the staff report that we got today, it says award the contract to the low bidder. And so you just mentioned that there was no bidder on the project, but there was concerns about a specification included in those bid documents. So in my experience in bidding projects, those were commonly called poison pill specifications. In other words, the reason why no bids were submitted was because the specifications had that poison pill in them. So what do you plan to do moving forward, if anything, to change the specifications to make it more biddable for companies going forward?
Right. So it's my understanding that the 3,000 cubic foot per second criteria is negotiable, meaning that if somebody was willing to build this for us, that we could negotiate and remove that as one of the criteria is my understanding.
So wouldn't it be then prudent to remove that criteria from the specifications and then rebid the project, so that now those folks that could potentially bid, that poison pill being removed, could now offer competing bids on the project?
We could do that. I will just say, based on the information that I gathered, that because this is such a specialized kind of scientific equipment / installation, there's not many people who do this. So it's not really, it would boil down to Fish Bio, because they're one of the people that have done this before, and possibly the people in Oregon. We could rebid it. That's certainly an option if we wanted to do that.
So just so
Aren't we-
I understand,
Aren't we in the time?
Yeah, I was going to say, we do have a calendar issue with respect to the season of construction, so.
it's just from the standpoint, Thomas, of the staff report doesn't indicate, the staff report we see here today does not indicate awarding a contract to anyone. The administrative committee meeting staff report discussed what you talked about, which was a discussion with one contractor and your discussions about removing the specifications for the 3000 CFS. Why wasn't that information and the fact that the desire to award the contract to that contractor, why was that not included in the staff report?
That was an oversight on my part. I should have rewritten this staff note to incorporate the new details of that discussion. I thought that the overall concern was the fact that people were concerned that it didn't go to the state of California. So we included a sentence. Well, we even missed that because I found that out after this got finalized for the board packet.
Yeah, clearly it's an oversight in the recommendation. The recommendation should be to authorize staff to negotiate a contract with a single bidder because it was a no bid situation. And it is authorized under California contracting code that if you receive no bids, you can negotiate.
Other questions, Director Hoffman?
No, I'm fine. Thanks, Thomas.
Okay.
All right, thank you. All right, board, do we have any questions? I mean, motions or
Chair,
questions? Go ahead.
Don't we have to go out to the public?
After we get a motion,
Well, I move to approve.
I got a motion approved. Do I have a second?
I second.
Now I have a second from Director Riley. Okay, let's take it out to the public, Arlene.
If anyone wants to comment, please use the raised hand icon or press *9. I see no raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Arlene. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. And quickly on the second from me, I'm going to support this item. I got an email from the general manager on what I wanted to know and what we discussed at the administrative committee. So we need to move this along and we have time constraints. I appreciate Director Hoffman questions. He was at that meeting. He was in it. Well, he heard it. So I appreciate his question. I got mine answered. Roll call
Chair Edwards.
on the second.
Chair Edwards, this is Director Evans. May I?
Go ahead.
Thank you. I would like to thank Director Hoffman for pointing that out. I was at administrative committee meeting. I do recall the discussion that we had, and yes, the staff note is different from what we did see there. I would like, if it's all right, I would like to make a substitute motion that rather than accept the staff recommendation, that we rewrite the recommendation, that it does state for the record that we are authorizing the general manager to negotiate a contract with the sole bidder for construction of the Carmel River Steelhead Resistance Board Weir project at cost plus 10% contingency.
Well, not even sole bidder, Director Evans.
I'm sorry, you're right. It was not sole bidder, a sole source.
It would be to negotiate with Fish Bio in a sole source arrangement due to a lack of bids received on the public bid process.
Thanks.
And Arlene will get that correct in the minutes.
That's fine with me.
Yeah, well,
That's fine with the motion. How about the second? Director Raleigh, are you fine with the language?
Satisfied with the substitute motion as well. So I've already seconded the first motion. So I think I'm out of play on this one.
No, you in play. You doing it right.
I
Thank you.
second Molly's motion.
Okay. Roll call vote, please.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Hoffman,
No.
Director Riley,
Aye.
Director Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Edwards.
Yes,
Motion passes 6-1.
6-1. Thank you. Item number 3. Who pulled it? Who pulled item number 3?
I did. This is Director
All right,
Evans.
let's
I
go.
did pull this. I have a comment on it rather than a question, so I don't know if it's appropriate to state that at this time or if I should restate my comment as a question.
Well, let's make it easy on everybody. Which one you want to do?
I'll restate my comment as a question.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right. General Manager, in the staff note, I noticed there's a sentence midway through the discussion that says the Monterey One Water has decided to move forward with the final well commissioning and bidding and contracting for the third injection well during the month of August. This statement to me sounds like it was a unilateral decision by a partner agency in this, and I just want to get confirmation that, because I don't recall, and I think I have been to every meeting I was supposed to be at, I do not recall us ever deciding to move forward with adding the third injection well. And while I do understand that financially they have reopened the state revolving loan to fund it, and it is not something that the district is funding, but with our arrangement being that we are a 75% financial partner, it seems to me that this statement, where it was a unilateral decision by them to spend what could potentially have been our money, I just would like to get some clarification on that.
Yeah, I think the sentence could have been edited to say, as decided at the district's strong encouragement, because we, John Lear and Maureen Hamilton kind of saw the writing on the wall immediately and viewed this as the likely long-term decision to keep us, the district, out of breach on our water purchase agreement. We even wanted the process to move a little more quickly, but they did need to see if they could reopen their state revolving fund loan. It got discussed at water supply planning on more than one occasion, but I think in front of the board only during the budget workshop as a capital project.
Thank you. That's all that I have, Chair.
You want to make a motion?
Chair, I've got a question if I could.
Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
In reading the staff reports, it seems to indicate that the original intent was to have Maureen do this oversight work.
Right.
But because of the overload work that would entail, that we are going out now with a hydrogeologist from Ventura County, apparently to do the work. I guess my question is, we've hired back Larry Hampton. And so it seems, I'm just wondering why, if Maureen was good enough as a registered civil engineer to do the work, and we have brought on Larry, brought back Larry, why we're not utilizing him and instead going to a hydrogeologist at $200 an hour and his assistant at $135 an hour in lieu of something more local and less expensive. I think at the administrative committee meeting, I think Director Evans pointed out that 25% of the cost of the contract is travel for the individuals to do this work. And that just seems unreasonable way to spend taxpayer and ratepayer money.
Yeah, if only we had more staff, but we put a freeze on hiring. So Larry is a limited time, limited term employee. He's doing the management on item 2, the fish weir project, which is project management. And he's also assisting with the 2808A, C, and B water rights efforts. John can weigh in a little bit more if need be. So he doesn't have a whole lot of free time. As you may note, it's both the ASR project as well as the other work as project manager on the Pure Water Monterey well field that has stretched Maureen pretty much to the limit. But Martin Feeney has expertise with well drilling. Larry does not. And Martin Feeney has experience with the Seaside Groundwater Basin in terms of the hydrogeology. So he's an experienced hydrogeologist in this general locale. John, I don't know if you have anything to add.
Yes, thanks, Dave. Yes, Director Hoffman, we did approach a local hydrogeologist that has the same skill set, and it is a very unique skill set as a hydrogeologist who actually oversees wells and taking them apart and having them put back together correctly. There's quite a lot of things you have to watch for as you're managing this, and in my opinion, some of these firms have really good well construction and well rehab people, and one of the firms is our Pueblo firm that we use, and we've used it in our ASR project for 20 years, and one of them is Martin Feeney, and one of them is Aaron Bierman, and the one that was in Ventura was the one that was available.
So if I may ask John, when I've been around when Cal-Am has done this kind of cleaning of the wells, and I am not aware that they felt the need to hire a hydrogeologist consultant to oversee the cleaning of their wells. Are you aware that that's their practice of hiring a hydrogeologist for cleaning of the screens on the wells?
They have hired Martin Feeney to oversee some well rehabs mainly of their lower wells, and it depends on the complexity and size of the well. These Pure Water Monterey wells are very complex injection wells and extraction wells, and so it's just the level of difficulty of the job. But he has worked for Cal-Am and done this same function.
But we were willing to let Maureen do this work if only she wasn't overbooked.
Yes, that is correct. It was going to be Maureen in the position reporting to me as also a certified hydrogeologist, and having overseen all of the rehabs of our ASR wells. I was going to work with Maureen, but now I'm going to be working with Martin, and he will be filling the role of Maureen in that situation. And then to add also to, so we had to offload the IRWMP grant management to Larry as well.
Larry, yeah.
But John, you know, the thing is, you look at the proposal, the vast majority of ours is not by Feeney, it's by an associate of Feeney. So basically, Feeney's staff will be doing the work. Feeney will be then reviewing his staff's work, and then you're going to be reviewing Feeney's review of Feeney's staff's work. Seems like there's an awful lot of levels that we're paying for in this process that maybe aren't necessary. That's not anything you need to answer, John. That's just a comment. But thank you for your responses.
Okay, any other board comments or anything? Okay, can we get a motion in a second before I take it to the public?
I'll move to approve.
Second. We move to approve by Director Adams and second by Director Potter. All right, Arlene, could you please open it up to the public?
Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Arlene.
I have a question regarding procedure. Aren't we supposed to listen to the public before we make a motion?
Yes.
Well, excuse me. I'm trying to move along.
That's all right.
That's all right. We can hang around on this one. We want to get it right. All right. We're gonna listen to the public. No, any raised hands, Arlene? Okay, I'm gonna call for the roll call vote.
Director Hoffman,
No.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley, Director Riley, Director Riley, yes, thank you. Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Edwards. Director Edwards,
Yes,
motion passes 6-1.
6-1. All right, thank you. Item number 4.
Yes, so this one, John, are you and Thomas going to tag team, or who's taking the lead on this?
I'll take the lead on it.
Okay, great, Thomas. So we're just waiting on specific questions from Director Riley.
Thank you. I sent an email with my 4 questions. I think they're pretty simple and just yes or no or quick answers. I'm just curious about how this works. On the pumping schedule, it seems like these are low-level pumps, and I'm wondering they're activated very sporadically, but on some kind of schedule. Are they manually activated, or is there an automated system to do this from some distance?
So it's my understanding that, during the low flow season, which we're in now, there's after 5 consecutive days of under 20 cubic feet per second at Don Juan Bridge, which is the bridge in Garland Park. That puts us in the low flow season. And so what we really don't want, and the regulatory agencies don't want, is Cal-Am to be pumping their wells above the Scarlet Narrows. So in that exhibit 4-B, that's the list of wells that would be pumping in the wet season to potentially help ASR, but they don't pump in the dry season. So this schedule is basically when they would physically go out and do some kind of test on the well, the electrical equipment. And so it's not necessarily automated, in my understanding, in the summertime. It's more of an individual from Cal-Am would go out and maybe do a back flush and a water sample for a short period of time and then turn it off, because it involves closing valves. And it's my understanding that not all the valves are on an electric system where they could do it remotely. And the reason this schedule is important is if district staff happen to stumble on a well that's running, then they're not thinking, oh, it shouldn't be running today, it's in the summertime, but then they can look at this and say, oh yeah, they're doing a test today. So it's kind of a way of just tracking of when wells should be on and when they shouldn't be on.
Are the pumping volumes, they seem pretty small to me, but am I off base on that?
These are pumping the days. It's a calendar day when they're going to do maintenance. So I don't have the list in front of me, but these wells are not the real big producers like the lower valley, but they do have an impact on the river in the summertime. John, do you know the gallons per minute on some of these?
I'm not interested in the data so much as the impact of what they do.
Yes, Director Riley, and thanks, Thomas. Thomas is correct that those volumes, those small volumes, are the volumes that are associated with removing the correct amount of casing volumes out of the well, so you can take a valid water sample. So they still need to, even though these wells are not allowed to produce to the system in the summer, they still have required sampling by their Department of Drinking Water permit. So that's the associated volume of water you're asking about.
And then my last question is, if there is a new water supply, do these small producing wells get even lower priority and get mothballed at all? I mean, what's the impact of these small wells if we get a new water supply?
Right, I can answer that. When I bring the quarterly water budget before the board, there's a bullet item on each of the quarterly water budgets which says that this quarterly water budget was developed in accordance with a bunch of state board order numbers. Well, the state board order number 2002-02 is a state board order that established the low flow period and said these wells may not run in the summertime. So if the CDO is lifted, as well as and if order 2002-02 is seen as a component of the suite of the CDO, that component may be lifted, but I don't know enough about legal and how the CDO will be lifted to be able to say that. I can specifically say, as long as State Board Order 2002-02 is around, these wells will be limited, and they are a smaller set of producing wells. As Thomas is saying, they produce less gallons per minute, and if they would be mothballed, I think that would probably be an operational and an economic decision by Cal-Am at that time. I don't know, Dave, if you have another comment.
I agree. I mean, it would give them the opportunity to not have to continually rehab and maintain and, further protect the river. So, but it'll be an operational decision later.
Yeah, and that's the direction of my questioning anyway. So I have no other questions. I move approval of this item.
Well, we got to take it to the public before you
Sorry
do
about that.
That's all right. All right, any other board questions? If no other board questions, Arlene, let's take it to the public.
All right, if anyone would like to comment, please use the raised hand icon or press *9 on your phone. I see no raised hands, Chair Edwards.
Thank you, Arlene. Now we can have that motion, Director Riley.
I move approval.
Now I'll second.
Okay, motion made by Director Riley and second by Director Evans. Roll call vote for discussion. If no discussion, roll call vote, please.
Director Hoffman,
Yes.
Director Adams,
Aye.
Director Byrne,
Yes.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Oh, aye. Sorry, I didn't hear my name.
and Director Edwards.
Yes,
Motion passes 7-0.
motion passes 7-0. Thank you. All right, we're into the general manager's report. General manager?
Thank you. I do want to point out we still have 26 attendees to our meeting, so maybe they did not hear that you pulled item 11 from the agenda and it will not be addressed tonight. So just a public service message in case people are sticking around for that one. Let's start first, as Arlene's pulling it up, the compliance report. Going first to the overall Monterey Peninsula water resource system. This is the first month in a few where the actual exceeds the target. Remember, these are quarterly established targets when we come to you with the quarterly water budget. And that's primarily due to the coastal pumping in the Seaside groundwater basin as the company attempts to use existing wells to get its native yield out of the Seaside basin in anticipation of beginning pumping for the Pure Water Monterey supply, which, as you have heard publicly, the 1,000 acre-foot operating reserve will be satisfied by the 1st of September, allowing the publicly available Pure Water Monterey water to go to customer service. So they're trying to front run, if you will. Typically in June, we were 118 under target, and in May, 112 under target. But it'll be a self-correcting item for the year, we expect. Next slide. And these are just, again, reminders that there's been no change in the table 13 because we're in a summer session. That's a seasonal extraction. And Sand City desal has been moving a little slowly, apparently due to both intake and discharge requirement issues. Next slide. So this is the measure of demand, so production from all sources for delivery of customer service. The only thing I want to highlight there is that we're only 6 acre-feet over last year at this point in the water year, with 2 more months to report. And at the end of June, we were 30 over last year, and the end of May, we were 186 over last year. So what's happened is the climate or the weather with the relative, until this last week, by the way, we had a relatively foggy coastal summer, which kept irrigation demands low. And, you know, we've talked a little bit about the impacts of COVID on residential versus commercial. Obviously, commercial remains low with the reclosing of interior dining, but you know, over the weekend, all the Carmel hotels were pretty full. So we're seeing a little bit of resurgence in that area as well, but it's a good trend getting down to about the same level as last year. Next slide. This one, I just cracked myself up because why are we talking about recorded rainfall? And then we had this very strange last weekend. I don't know how many of you got to see the lightning show about, you know, 5 in the morning on Saturday. It was pretty incredible. And then rain came through. So I won't say that there's no rain in August, but it won't be much higher than that little dot that you see, which is the historical average. In the next one, stream flows continued at nice levels, primarily due to those April rains. We're seeing a tapering off. Looking at my data from the fisheries people, the river has now become intermittent in the Palo Corona Regional Park, which is the old Rancho Cañada golf course, and definitely around the Quail golf cart bridge area. So we're seeing scattered pockets. To date, they've rescued 6,872 fish from the main stem and 4,379 fish from the tributaries. So over 11,000 fish have been rescued. And most recently, all of our rescues are going to the now operating renovated Sleepy Hollow fish rearing facility, which it's a fabulous facility. It's a huge change. We're struggling not being able to get you out there to visit some of these facilities as so much construction has been going on. But Larry finally wrapped that one up, and the staff is doing a real terrific job, but it is operating at this point. And that concludes my GM report. Item 6, update on Measure J activities. This is just to let the public know that our board on the 13th of August conducted a closed session related to existing and pending litigation. So this is pending litigation, threatened litigation, sorry, as well as real property negotiation. We split it into 2 parts. The progress on the operations and what that means for the potential bench trial should the board want to carry through will be reported out publicly. We're hoping for the September meeting as we try to get those drafts completed and conformed with each other. And then we had some discussion with the appraiser and financial firm related to rate setting under public ownership based on the potential range of prices offered. After that meeting, there's been a couple of questions that have been raised by different board members that we're going to try to coalesce, as well as from our eminent domain attorney, and we'll get back to that consulting specialist. The real estate is part of the appraisal effort, and that's ongoing because there's, like, I can't tell you off the top of my head, about 111 parcels that are being examined. So that will take probably till the end of September, early October, and then be folded into the appraisal format. LAFCO, we've got item 9, which we'll talk about when we get to. And I was talking to LAFCO today about mapping requirements for the annexation piece, where our GIS people are having some issues conforming with the state's requirements and LAFCO's requirements and still getting the information on a page. So I think we've got a solution for that. And then the EIR final comments are being addressed currently, and the final EIR is slated to come together mid-September, and we're still on schedule for that. And that would probably might come to the board for certification at the September board meeting. But it could be October. And finally, actually 2 items to report. Item 7 here, I just want to commend Arlene for finally executing and getting and beating on Suresh and myself and others to get the final things that were needed for our application for the California Special Districts Association Transparency Certificate. At some point, we'll try to figure out how to get their little logo onto our website so that we can show it. But it all goes to certain requirements for public agencies to demonstrate that they are transparent to the public. And they awarded that to us. I think I sent out an email to the board. And then finally, in an odd development, we had $66,000 left over in the HEART program, the IRWM grant from the state for the disadvantaged communities. We came to you seeking approval to move that to a retrofit install at the Rippling River community outside of Carmel Valley Village. We had the Santa Cruz Community Foundation and consultants working with the state in effect approved that, and the board approved it. And then just this last week, it went up to the Department of Water Resources Council's office, and they said, no, we do not view that as an appropriate transfer of the grant monies. We will prohibit it. And so very likely it will be reallocated to one of the other approved projects, which is the Monterey wastewater project. So we're a little sad about that because we thought it was more in keeping with the original disadvantaged community orientation of that HEART program. And with that, that concludes my general manager's report. Take questions if you want.
Any questions of the general manager on the
Chair
report?
Edwards, this is Director Evans. I do have one question.
Go ahead.
Dave, on that last comment that you made, is there any opportunity to appeal that state decision to ply our case for why going to a disadvantaged community is a better option?
It's a great question, and it's already been asked and answered. It was a very firm no. Yeah.
Well, that is truly disappointing. Thank you for the.
Did they give you any reasoning behind that no?
No, not really. We got some feedback early on that they were no longer really excited about install programs where you basically are doing the retrofits and paying a plumber to come in and do it. Nevertheless, the seaside community area that we did with our partner Ecology Action was accepted as a program under outreach. And so we obviously characterize this as a continuation of the outreach. I think that may have been a little bit of it, is that it was really a project coupled with outreach. So that could have had some weighing in it, but no, the staffer who gave us the information, or I guess it was Community Foundation of Santa Cruz, said that the council's office, so it came out of the legal side of DWR, was adamant, firm, that it was just not an appropriate transfer of the money. And so, our hands are kind of tied at this point.
Yeah, it was just presented as non-negotiable.
Yeah.
That was very disappointing.
It's very disappointing.
Yeah.
Okay, any other questions for the GM? All right, thank you, General Manager. Next report will be report from the District Council on the July 31st, 2020 and the August 13, 2020 board closed session. General Counsel.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. I'm going to report on the 2 special meetings as well as the earlier closed session of tonight. On July 31st, the board did meet to discuss the initiation of litigation. This had to do with the dispute resolution process that is ongoing with Monterey One Water related to the Pure Water Monterey expansion SEIR. The board did discuss and provide general direction, but no specific reportable action was taken at that July 31st meeting. At a special meeting last week on August 13th, the board did meet with its real property negotiators to review the properties held by California American Water Company, as Mr. Stoll did comment earlier. Again, no specific reportable action was taken. It was background and answering questions of the board. Earlier tonight, beginning at 4:30, the board did meet in closed session on 2 items on the agenda. The first was the public employee performance evaluation of your general manager. The board reviewed process and provided general direction in terms of putting together the performance evaluation, but again, no specific reportable action was taken. And finally, the board did consider the same initiation of litigation concerning Monterey One Water, did review its appointed representatives in the further mediation process and provided general direction, but no specific action was taken. That concludes my report as to all 3 meetings. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, General Counsel. Any questions of General Counsel? Okay, moving along. Director's report, including an AB 1, 2, 3, 4, report on trips, conferences, and attendance and meetings. Any board members have any comments?
Mr. Chair,
Yes.
thank you. I do
Go
have
ahead.
comments. I had the wonderful opportunity of attending the virtual Aqua conference on July 29th. And there were some really great presentations. I was very thankful to be able to be there. The governor had just released his water portfolio the day before. So there were a lot of discussion items around it. One of the things I found interesting was discussion around wildfire and some of the new techniques that we're going to be using on how we'll be able to fight wildfire in a different and more technologically advanced way. I wish we were doing that right now over on River Road. But it was really a good conference, and I think there were others who were there. Governor doing a single tunnel over in the Central Valley, which was kind of an interesting thing to hear about a little bit. And Wade Crowfoot, who is the Secretary of California Natural Resource Agency, was present. He gave an interesting presentation as well. So while it's quite different to go to a conference when you're, sitting in your room looking at the Zoom, it still, I felt, was really helpful. I've had the opportunity to go to Aqua several times, and I really enjoy it and always come away with some good ideas. So thank you for allowing me to attend.
And I think that the supervisor wants to add that she was very proud to see the district logo at sponsorship of one of the keynotes.
That's absolutely right. I thank you for reminding me of that.
All right.
Any other board?
Mr. Chair, this is
Go ahead.
Dave. I had exactly the same experience as Mary. I will say, though, that for me, with a case of ADD, it's a little difficult for me to sit there without being able to socially interact with the people in attendance. One of the big things I think about those conferences is the networking capabilities. And those are really foregone, I think, with the inability to actually sit down afterwards and chat with people about their experience. It was edifying, but I don't know if I could sit there that long again.
Chair?
Thank you.
Through the chair.
Go ahead, Director Rao.
Yeah, I was also there, the Zoom meeting one day, and I share there's some good discussions and a good kind of reminder of where we are in the water world. California, nothing is settled, and everything is changing, and everything's going to be costly. And it's all preparing us for new experiences, even though we've been there before in many ways also. One thing that Wade Crowfoot said, which I found quite interesting, that he's trying to expedite the direct potable reuse for recycled water. and he's hoping to get approval of that. At least that's what he's working to expedite by 2023. I thought that might have some implication for us later down the road as we're kind of dealing with that world, and there may be a cost-saving opportunity as if we could change some of the structure around that if that gets approved. It may be a unique, episodic about how they get that approval, but anyway, I was glad to hear that. The other thing I wanted to report on a little bit was the Water Master. The chair of the Water Master is Paul Bruno. He's been a chair for some time, but he's been on there for a long time. He got the Water Master voted several months ago to support Calian's desal, and Paul Bruno is he's the chair, so he's showing up at various public hearings, mainly before the Coastal Commission, promoting the decision that the Water Master voted on. As I was checking on the vote for that, I didn't realize this, but until just recently. But the agency itself, the Water Master, is made up of 9 members. But every vote that they take is based on a weighted vote formula. Every vote they take, even approving the minutes, is based on a weighted vote. And the total weighted vote in that group is 13. And it pretty much is split 7-6, 7-6. I even hate to talk about this, but in a way, because it reminds me of Monterey One Water. When you got one vote and you use weighted votes, and there's a difference of one vote that swing any particular thing. They're not significant decisions being made at the Water Master. That's the only saving grace for me, is that, the dynamics about the weighted votes don't really matter that much. But I just thought it was interesting that the weighted vote concept exists in another neighboring agency. And it's sometimes argumentative about the value of that and how it works and who the representatives are and who gets appointed and who gets elected, and it's just there. I just comment on it. That's all. Nothing more to add.
Thank you, Director Rowley. Anyone else? Okay. The chair here would like for the board to consider sending a letter to the CPUC in support of R1706024. And that's the water rate adjustment mechanism. I'd like the board to send a letter of support to discontinue water rate adjustment mechanism. And we need to do that before August 27th. That's when they're going to be considering this.
Excuse me, Chair. Is
Yes.
this on the agenda?
No, I would like a letter sent to them.
Oh.
Okay. You're gonna have a chance. You're gonna have a chance to yay or nay it later.
I didn't follow what the letter was referring to.
It's referring to supporting water rates adjustment mechanism. Letter of support to discontinue water rates adjustment mechanism. GM, could you explain it, please?
Well, excuse me, Chair, just as a point of order, we're on item number 8, as I understand it, which is oral reports.
Yes.
On activities of other agencies and associations. So I am just really confused as to what's going on here.
I'm just asking for a letter to be drawn up. I asked for this stuff before. So,
but we're on item 8.
I know what item we're on there, Director. Mr. Laredo, what kind of trouble I'm in?
Mr. Chairman, I think we are straying from the agenda. I understand the gist of what you're seeking, and that is to either have you draft a letter or the general manager to draft a letter, but that's a far cry from having the board discuss it or talking about what it's going to be. So I don't believe that a discussion as to the content of that letter would be appropriate at this time.
And I'm not trying to discuss it. I'm just telling what I want to see. So if I could do that, and I think I did that. General Manager, you have any comments?
No.
Director? Okay, we can move along now. You'll be hearing more on that one.
So I'm assuming we're not approving sending a letter at this point.
There is no action before the board.
There's no action, but just a letter going to be coming out. Thank you. Okay. We're on public hearings.
Yes,
How many people we still got out there?
great question.
You have 24 attendees.
Okay, and since I'm in a good mood tonight, we're gonna give them 3 minutes. All right, General Manager, what is first public hearing?
Well, hopefully they won't choose to speak because this is deja vu all over again. You took action on this specific resolution at the July meeting. And I noticed it just like any other public hearing, normal public hearing. Turns out we were supposed to advertise it. So luckily, General Counsel stepped in quickly. And then Arlene was able to also quickly, with Sarah, get it published in a a newspaper of general publication and circulation. So this is a redo on the July 20th adoption. I think the recommendation says ratify it. We should probably change that to adopt it. It'll just be your second adoption of the same resolution, but that way the board secretary's action will say that you adopted it on August 17th.
Chair, if I may, Director Evans.
Yeah,
just
Director
for
Evans.
Point of clarification. So this, what we discussed this in July, we approved this in July, but there was, and it was properly noticed, but it was not advertised in enough time. Is that?
So it wasn't properly noticed. It was noticed like most of our board public hearings. And turns out LAFCO requires that you publish a public notice. And
okay, so when was this public? When was the notice published?
Probably, Arlene, I don't know if you can chime in.
Yeah, it needed 21 days notification to be published in a newspaper 21 days before this meeting, and it was.
Okay, so then this is just basically a formality to complete the notification of publication and then to.
If I may, through the chair.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
What the board previously did was proper under the Brown Act, but it did not fully comply with the LAFCO internal process. This is intended to essentially pass the resolution in full compliance with the LAFCO process.
Any other questions from the board on the item? No questions from the board? Arlene, can we please take it to the public?
Yes, so we're receiving public comment. If you do want to comment, please use the raise hand icon or press *9 on your phone. Chair Edwards, I see no raised hands.
Move approval.
Thank you, Arlene. Got to move approval.
Second.
Second.
I got a bunch of seconds. Who was first? I think George Riley snuck in. Director Riley. Okay, roll call vote.
Byrne? Director Byrne?
Yes.
Director Evans?
Aye.
Director Hoffman?
Yes.
Director Adams?
Aye.
Director Riley?
Aye.
Director Potter?
Aye.
And Director Edwards?
Aye. Yes.
Motion passes 7-0.
Thank you. 7-0. General Manager, we're in action items. What's the first?
And I guess this would be the last item.
No, okay.
Given the action we took earlier. So Arlene will be getting a presentation up. By way of background, many of you on the board have participated in committee level hearings of a lot of this. So some of this will be a little familiar to you, but we'll just go through it and let you know where we stand. So next page, Arlene. So this is all that we've done. We raised this concept to the board August a year ago. And we mentioned there were several different ways, approximately 5 different ways that through our own district policies, we might be in a position to make an allocation for housing. We were instructed to bring those concepts to water demand, which we did in December last year. And then we were going to focus on total need and just similar to what we did for CHOMP a decade or 2 ago, looking at just creating a new allocation just for housing through the district's own permitting system. In February, the Technical Advisory Committee, which is comprised of staff members of the planning boards of our cities, planning commissions rather of our cities, and some city managers, was given homework to, in effect, develop a list of what their view of housing need is for the next 3 to 4 years while we're waiting to try to lift the CDO. The city of Monterey sent a letter that went through the Water Demand Committee in March, April, and May of this year, suggesting that they could almost double their housing units with 100% affordable of the doubling amount if the district would release money from its district water from its district reserve. And that was followed with a stern email from the Chief Counsel's office of the State Water Board at that March Water Demand Committee meeting. Nevertheless, the board decided anyway to make an allocation available if the city of Monterey would enter into an indemnification agreement with the district, which is still being worked on. We did highlight that this was coming to the State Water Board both twice in May, once with the Deputy Director of Water Rights and once with the Chief Counsel's office. And then it came back to the TAC. We reviewed what the ask should look like. And then we took it to the Policy Advisory Committee on August 4th and back to Water Demand on August 6th. So this is going to briefly summarize where we kind of ended up. Next slide, please. The concern that was expressed in the email was that any increased use at an existing service address could be non-compliant with the cease and desist order. And that was obviously what we appeared to be asking for here. It would not be inconsistent with our permitting process that looks on a pre-project and post-project basis. And if we had created a special allocation for housing, then any applicant would be able to demonstrate in the post-project setting that that's where that water would be coming from. Next slide. The Garden Road project attracted the attention of the state because it did 3 things that the state's very concerned about. It would be going from commercial to residential, which is a change in use. It was rezoned in order to allow residential. And if we created this allocation and let them double down the size of their projects, it would result in an increase in use. So it was only to be expected that it would attract the State Water Board's attention. Next slide. And we can go to the next slide. Basically, they reiterated their position. But Senate Bill 330, which was signed into law last October, elevated the game and the importance of housing in California. It was the Housing Crisis Act of 2019. And that, coupled with the Regional Housing Needs Allocation process, the RHNA process, has really got all of our cities and jurisdictions focused on provision of housing. Next slide. Yeah, you can just hit all those bullets, bring them up. Thanks. And SB 330 essentially said that this is a crisis and it's of historic proportion. It's a health and safety issue. But it also said it's the policy to not allow any local government to restrain through issuing a moratorium housing development. And it's also the policy of the state not to reject or make infeasible housing development projects without strong evidentiary support. So we've got a few planning directors who said, well, the cease and desist order, that's a moratorium on housing. Let's face it, it is. And we said, well, not so fast. Let's look at the law. Next slide, please. And our conclusion is that there is a specific exception in what SB 330 did to the government code, which says a local government can restrict a housing development if it does not have adequate water or wastewater facilities. Well, I've actually had a planning director come back and say, but there's plenty of water. This is talking about pipes and facilities. And I said, no, I think it's talking about water, whether it's a facility or just the existence of the water. And so in our belief, we think that SB 330 contemplated a lack of local supply, which means it still kind of all runs through the State Water Board. Next slide. But under the cease and desist order, it does say the district may petition for relief if a showing is made that public health and safety will be threatened if relief is not granted. Now, an early read of that section in the CDO, we've been told just refers to the reductions, but the State Water Board did issue a letter in April of 2012 that seemed to expand that relief for health and safety. And so that would be the door we would attempt to open the conversation under. That since this language was written, California itself has declared this to be a health and safety issue. Next slide. So the initial responses are shown here. They were done primarily in letter form or email. The no responses have since been corrected. Delray Oaks sent a very in-depth email, and the unincorporated county has also responded. I don't think that was reflected in the staff note that got into the packet, but everyone has now responded. But we also realized that Nichols Postgraduate School and the Presidio of Monterey were not given a chance to respond and did have projects that we have seen listed. And the school districts, primarily the Monterey Unified, is looking at potentially developing teacher housing. But this total of initial requests ended up at 92 acre feet. Next slide. So when we basically just assigned values to the folks who didn't respond at the time, as well as the underrepresented entities, we got up to about 113 acre feet. Next slide. So the committee, actually all three committees that have heard this, also got to see how you might weight based on population, how you might weight based on the RHNA number, the housing allocation number. In all cases, the amount of water that has been requested, in our staff opinion, exceeded a reasonable amount to ask the state to free up. So using kind of the data of what the conditions were at the time the CDO was issued and what are the conditions on average over the last 5 years, we said, look, we're 3,600 acre feet better off. And in that April 2012 letter, they did say one of their concerns was they didn't want to see new growth coming from water from the river. And it's sometimes difficult to say it's growth if you're actually down 3,600 acre feet. If you program back in 50 or 75, you're still way lower than you were conditions on the ground when the CDO was passed. Nevertheless, we said 2% for a variety of reasons is often thought of as de minimis. We rounded that to 75, and we said that's a reasonable ask. That's what we took back to the TAC and the Water Demand Committee in the July meetings. And next slide. And we reallocated that, and we showed the PAC members a chart similar to this And there was not universal happiness. I think the Carmel by the Sea and the city of Delray Oaks and the city of Pacific Grove felt that they were held to quite a bit under what they had asked for. So we went back to staff. Well, we went back to the submittals and we went back to what they were actually asking for. We felt that Delray Oaks was over asking based on a complete satisfaction of their cycle 4 RENA number and their cycle 5, not any of which, well, I can't say any, not all of which could be satisfied in a 3-year period. Carmel by the Sea did ask for water for ADUs, but clearly stated they had no particular housing project plans on the books for the near term. And Pacific Grove.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. And Pacific Grove, we went back in and through a combination of things, we feel that this is fair. But our new approach based on the Policy Advisory Committee meeting is simply to ask for 75 acre feet, keeping this allocation somewhat in mind, but only allocating out about half of this at the beginning, and then wait to see which cities genuinely need additional water in the 2nd year or 3rd year. So that's kind of the current plan, but this is still kind of the backstory for how we might allocate that 75 acre feet. The school districts were dropped almost to 0 because they, in between those meetings, decided not to place a bond measure on the ballot to do teacher housing. Next slide. So this is the process that we've laid out. Where we are in it right now is kind of the middle box where we've already tasked our Sacramento lobbyists, JEA Associates, to identify key committee consultants and housing and community development staff that we can meet with, as well as assembly champions and Senate champions. The problem we have there is they're about to go on recess and not to return until the new group is sworn in. So getting our electeds is going to be a challenge during this period, but certainly the staff will continue to be working. And so that's a starting point. So we'll see how this work on the housing side plays out. What we want is them to be supportive and say, yes, this is important, and this is important at a state level. And if they push back from the beginning, then we would not go to the State Water Board. So we're just getting ready to start that enlistment of state support on the housing side. And with the recommendation today, you would in effect be blessing the work the committees have done to date and just free your staff and your legislative advisory committee support people to move forward. Next slide. As we get a positive signal and we begin to develop some of these meetings, we are working at developing a coalition and trying to keep a couple of city staff engaged in our meetings and developing letters of support from these supporters, which include both each of the cities and the county, as well as some non-governmental organizations such as Land Watch, United Way, Monterey Bay Economic Partnership, and others who have made housing a priority. And then the goal would be to throw ourselves at the mercy of the state board. And this is all because even though we know we can do it with our permitting regime, we would not like to see an enforcement action taken against a project that gets built that suddenly becomes of lesser value with fewer units because we just unilaterally did it ourselves. So the hope is to, free up some special exemption under a health and safety rule, and that's where we'd like to be authorized to go.
So I have a question. This is all aimed at affordable housing, correct?
Correct.
So what happens, what kind of kickback are we going to get from all the people that have been on water wait lists for to build a house on a vacant lot or to remodel their house or
Right.
add on to their house, what kind of kickback do we get from those people who've genuinely been waiting for a long time and haven't been able to do their projects because of lack of water?
Yeah, that's one of what I would call four potential kickbacks. You want to hear the other three? The other ones are what's going to qualify as affordable, because right now some cities have the 1 in 4 set aside and the others have the 1 in 5 set aside for, so you can have 4 market rate and 1 affordable. 100% affordable can get built, but it's very challenging to get built because of the profit margin isn't there for developers. So unless you've got a foundation, city resources or what have you, it's hard to get those projects done. We don't want to be in the position in the forefront of even saying what can and can't be done, but that issue is going to come up, which is, well, I don't want to see mixed use, or I don't want to see some market rate with a 20% set aside. I only want to see 100% affordable, and then nothing gets built. The third area is, and this is probably near and dear to our chairman's heart, why are we dictating housing if we could just give every city an allocation for use, then let them decide what it's all about. And then the fourth is, and this will be Director Hoffman's not incorrect presumption, which is, isn't all the water that's currently going above the 3,376 up the Carmel River kind of unlawful anyway? So would we be asking for an allocation of unlawful water? And so these are questions that are likely to get put out there, but definitely, Director Byrne, yours will be the, hey, what about me? I've been waiting for water for a decade.
Well, and because we're venturing into land use, and we have taken that stance for many, many years that we are not in the business of land use, even though we've been accused of that.
Yep. And
this would definitely be putting our foot square in the middle of that one.
And all we did as the district is say, well, we know how the water regulatory framework works better than anybody else. We will help you. And that's where this is going.
Okay, Dave, are you through with your presentation?
Yes.
All right. Any other board questions?
Chair, I do. If I can wait till after somebody else. That's fine.
Okay, Director Rowley, was you trying to open it
Well,
up?
no, yeah, this is a negotiation that's taking place in Sacramento largely. I mean, this is the pitch, and this is the understanding I have. And the Housing Crisis Act, the SB 330, did that identify affordable housing over just other housing? Was there any incremental approach to the affordable side of that equation?
Yes, a lot of it. So what the Senate bill does is it modifies sections of the government code, the health and safety code, and so forth. The health and safety code is where a lot of the law for affordable housing lives. And so a lot of its focus was on affordability. And a lot of its conclusions were, if you have to drive 70 miles to your home to find something that's affordable from your job back and forth, that you're putting yourself at risk, and there's other degrading environmental impacts to that and so forth. But did it specify numbers or anything like that? No. And so the cities still live with their RENA numbers, which has 4 categories of housing in it, which regular market rate is the 4th category, and everything else is, super low, low, and moderate.
Well, just on that point, I think if we take a hard look at our own community here, the Monterey Peninsula, we have a social inequity and an economic inequity imbalance with who can afford to live here and who can't. And to the extent that affordable housing, which is the lower levels of those categories, very low in particular, I don't see this. I don't see the land use kind of reluctance should be standing in the way here. If there's a way that a larger principle and a basic principle for a balanced community can be met, if the district can move in that direction. So I'm just consistently looking and inquiring about whether these projects even proposed by the cities have some very low and low income housing related to it, or is it all workplace or affordable in some broader sense, which does not really address the inequity issue that I think exists. That's just my comment.
Director Raleigh. Director Hoffman, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. I'm just, and General Manager, yeah, your comment took the words right out of my mouth, and that there isn't any water. The river is oversubscribed, and basically this is paper water and really doesn't exist. There is no available water to do this. But what I want to get to is actually some questions about how we got here, and that is in going back to your slide number 2 and bullet number 3, it says decided, and wondering who decided on this effort, because I'm not aware of any letters sent to the district from Monterey, Seaside, Delray Oaks, Carmel, the county saying, oh gosh, please go to we have this housing shortage, please go to the water board and ask for water so we can do this. Isn't that not, am I wrong? Were there letters sent by the communities early on in the decision to go down this road?
Yeah, there are a variety of things. There's a loose consortium of council members and mayors. So John Wizard from Seaside, Tyler Williamson from City of Monterey, and Allison Kerr at Delray Oaks came and met with us on this issue, the staff level, saying what could be done, what could be done. Got a couple of letters from the City of Monterey saying, can you do something? So it was started primarily with individual jurisdictions saying, you know, water is such a barrier to housing. And then one or two of our board members, who, if they want to speak up for themselves, may, saying, what can we do so that we're not constantly being blamed as the holdup for housing? And so it became a water district here to help kind of startup. But then when we said we're here to help, it kind of became, well, we're not here to just help the one city who's doing a better job of bringing this to us. Let's look at everybody together and figure out what the needs are and whether those needs can be addressed. And so we kind of shaped the discussion as a result of everyone coming to us in different parties and different methodologies, trying to tell all the jurisdictions that it needed to be a more unified approach to be successful.
So you made the statement that some of the cities were looking at the ADUs. Those are not affordable housing. There's no income level attached to the ADUs. That could be, they could charge anything they want for those.
That's absolutely correct. And in fact, the only thing controlling the ADUs are size requirements. And so if you get somebody with means who's willing to live in a side yard or backyard ADU, it may not go affordable. I think that there's a number of jurisdictions who believe that the ADUs will be affordable, but you know, as best I can tell, there's not an income requirement.
So Dave, so again, I'm trying to understand how we got here. So it sounds like based on a couple of directors' wishes, feelers were sent out. And again, correct me, I'm sure.
Yeah, no, it was the other way. It was jurisdictions starting to weigh in, primarily through Stephanie Locke's department or my desk directly, saying, hey, we got to get started. We're way behind on our RENA numbers. We're going to get. So what happened too is that the state started heating up the financial penalties first trying to say they'd withhold state funding, then saying we'll withhold your portion of the gas tax, your portion of this, your portion of that, trying to find a stick that the state had. And perhaps the supervisor and the mayor can weigh in a little bit on that. But basically sending a message to the local jurisdictions that they're going to find a way to penalize those who fail to act. And so some of the jurisdictions took that to heart and said, we got to make progress. And so that's when the phones started calling, the emails started happening, that kind of thing. And that was probably over a year ago at this point.
So, so getting back to how we got to where we are right now. So feelers were sent out saying to all the cities in the county saying, how much water do you think you're going to need in the next 3-4 years? Some sent in, some didn't. And then staff took that information and then unilaterally decided whether or not those numbers that the community submitted were correct or not. And that what we're before us today is staff's determination, modifying the requests from the different cities to be different than what they originally requested. Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, that's what we do.
And
I'd
so,
like to comment.
It
and
looks
so
to me like these requests should have gone to the State Water Resources Board, not to the district. We are under a CDO that people have been, quote, punished for years, and our direction is to provide a long-term sustainable water supply. These cities should have, those requests for more water should have gone straight to the State Water Resources Board. They're the ones that are in control of this.
Vice Chair, could wait until you ask your question. Let Director Hoffman finish with what he got, please. Go ahead, Director Hoffman.
thank you, Chair. The last thing that I'm concerned about, Dave, is the cost. I don't know how much in legal fees that we've already expended for this effort. And I'm just wondering, is there an estimate of what it's going to cost the taxpayers and the ratepayers, what it has costed up to this point for this effort, and what it's anticipated to cost the ratepayers and taxpayers to go through this process to the state board?
Time. There's been no cost.
What about legal fees?
Been no legal fees.
What about, you mentioned the consultants in Sacramento. They're going to do it for free?
They're paid retainer. They work for the district and they're the legislative advocacy committee's consultant on Sacramento issues.
Thank you.
Thank you. Director Potter, do you have any comments?
Well, I thought we were going to do questions first, so I was going to try to frame mine as a question, but I guess I can make it.
Go ahead. We doing questions.
All right. So, Dave, I think you hit that nail on the head here. Wouldn't you say that this RENA process is unprecedented, that you've never actually seen anybody telling us as a local jurisdiction, this is what you have to do? This flies in the face of local government's discretionary authority, if you ask me.
Yeah. And frankly, there are certain communities that speak out of both sides of their mouths. They say it's a priority for us, and then they never prioritize it. And that's what their right is as a jurisdiction, to pick your own priorities. I think there's just a little bit of fear going on. And we're just offering up our water knowledge in terms of what's even reasonable, and we see the permitting. And so one thing that we know probably better than the jurisdictions themselves is how much has actually gotten built in a decade, and how much water is actually needed for that, and how much water actually gets utilized in a 1,200-foot ADU, and those kind of things. So there's a little bit of us offering to lend our knowledge and our understanding of the regulatory framework, but I'll tell you in no small amount that I'm skeptical of some of the abilities of the jurisdictions who haven't acted in a decade to suddenly act in 2 to 3 to 4 years.
And two, I mean, it's basically 3 years or 4 years for something to get built out, which procedurally seems to me it takes for a long time. To Director Burns' comments about, well, how are you going to guarantee affordability on ADUs? We deed restrict them. You'd have to go ahead and submit, just like we've restricted short-term rentals in downtown Carmel. We go ahead and deed restrict properties that way. If you want an additional ADU, you got to set a price point down and you got to hold to it. But we haven't gotten to that yet. I think the big thing is, and I do represent Monterey County, San Benito County, and Santa Cruz County on the League of California Cities, and we are united in we need affordable housing. We just don't want to compromise our local ordinance and our local design review process and our local jurisdictional powers to determine what land use we want in this area.
Director Adams, I think you want to make some questions or comment or something?
Yeah, thank you.
Oh,
Thank you very much. This has just been such an interesting process to go through the RENA program particularly. And I feel like what's happened is that nobody was really addressing on a much bigger platform what's really going on in the world today. The homelessness, the people who are having to drive, as we had talked about, an hour each way to get to work, the degradation that does to family life and home life, the fact that the housing prices have just gone up in such a strong way, much higher than what the wages are in our area to continue to go to allow one to be able to have any kind of housing based on what they're making. That someone had to come in, the state came in and just said, listen, this is what you're going to have to do. Let's all work together to see if we can't come up with a solution to this massive housing issue that we have in our communities throughout the whole state. And you heard the names. Many of the big nonprofit organizations have taken on housing nationally as their focus of what we could do to try to improve the lives of people, not just in California, but in the whole country, so that people can thrive. And it is only through housing that people are going to be able to do this. And how are we going to have housing without having water? But the housing has to be affordable, which is why this whole thing has come forward. I'm not going to be on a soapbox for very much longer, but I think what we're doing is admirable. You know, what we're doing is being a good community partner. We're trying to be creative, like so many of the other organizations and community members and leaders in our community are doing. Let's come up with some workable solutions to be able to get people off the streets and into homes so that our community can be something that we as a nation should really be proud of. And I'm very delighted with the work that's gone on with this. And I applaud you. I applaud the staff for coming up with some creative solutions to this. Yes, it's on paper, but it's still something that we can do so that we can allow the workers who work in the fields, essential workers, those who work in the hospitality industry, can have a real place to live without having to drive up all of the other environmental issues with having to drive miles and miles. So, okay, that's enough, but I think you get the idea.
actually, that's not enough because our partner agency, Monterey One Water, has been providing their assistance in trying to get farm worker housing done. So they're committed to give their expertise to, how do you provide wastewater treatment for farm worker housing? So like the Tanamura and Antle model, they've worked with the Bunns, who are, a big family in agriculture. So it's to a little bit of what you're saying. If not us, then, who's going to lend their expertise?
Thank you. Director Evans, do you have any questions or comments before we go back around?
Chair, yes, thank you. I do. I have both questions and comments. I will ask my questions now. I will reserve my comments for after we hear from the public.
Sound good.
First question. So, General Manager, you mentioned that this went through both the TAC and the PAC. Can you explain who is on the Technical Advisory Committee and who is on the Policy Advisory Committee?
Sure. Stephanie, if you're still listening, maybe you take the TAC.
Sure. No, I can totally do that. So the Technical Advisory Committee is usually made up of the Planning Department, for Community Development Department Manager. And then the Policy Advisory Committee is a council member or a mayor from the jurisdiction. And
We've lost your audio.
the city manager.
So I'm on the PAC.
You are
Yeah.
on the PAC, yes.
Yeah, Tyler Williamson, I think, was assigned to the PAC for his group, or was it Clyde?
No, Tyler is
Tyler.
on the PAC.
Yeah, Tyler's. Do you have that in front of you, Arlene?
I don't have it in front of me, but
Arlene has it.
I have
there we
it.
go.
Okay, well, while Arlene is looking for that, I want to ask a few other questions. So last year when we started discussing this, yes, I will take full credit or full blame, either way, or both, or partial, doesn't matter. For bringing this before the board last year to discuss ways that we could shift the blame for a lack of housing off water. And so we had a great discussion, and I'm very excited to see that this came out of it. And I look forward to hearing a lot of the discussion tonight. My question, though, is since we're looking at this as a help for housing, with the state mandating and trying to find the biggest stick they have to browbeat local jurisdictions into creating housing, and here we have this issue. So I'm very excited to open this discussion between the different factions of the state to try to get them to resolve their issues, and different story altogether. In the staff note, there's a notice that some cities, for example, the city of Pacific Grove requested 31 acre feet of water. They currently have 37.5 acre feet remaining in their entitlement. So it seems to me that some of these jurisdictions that have water on their books, Seaside is another one that had a significant amount of water. They were looking for 21, they have 34.7. It seems to me that maybe some of those jurisdictions that are more water rich could be supporting their own projects if that is what is so important to them. Whereas our effort was to help those that didn't have the water to allocate to projects that are housing. So I'm just wondering, did that ever come up in the discussions?
Yeah, and Dave, you can explain how we looked at the different ways to weigh the potential.
I just have a comment about Pacific Grove, at least, who went to the expense of creating their own recycled water project, which is how they ended up with any allocation. So
correct, but they still have an allocation. They have water that they could put towards a housing project. They don't have to come to the district to get water that they don't have, unlike some of the other jurisdictions. Just asking the question.
Yep. So yes, when we made our very draconian decisions about what the allocations might look like, we did factor that in. Sand City also has a very large entitlement. Mm-hmm. We also factored in, which cities had higher RHNA goals and how many of them did their work relative to their RHNA goal, because some work was better than others. And that's why, Monterey came in pretty close to their ask, because they had a very detailed analysis of sites and potential, and they'd already started an RFP process for some sites, and their RHNA number is the highest among all of us by a lot. Seaside, they're in a difficult situation because they have a lot of water left in their jurisdictional allocation. But most of their long-term planning was built around redevelopment agency projects, which would require the setting of new meters. So they're kind of hamstrung in that their number of opportunities for large-scale projects off of existing meters is not as great. But we did factor in the fact that they've got a lot of the allocation still remaining for them. So, there's a little bit of alchemy that's involved here, but as I said, the one thing that came out of our PAC meeting was maybe don't assign it all out to the jurisdictions, hold some back and see where it ends up, who's going to have the greatest need coming up. Our friends at the Presidio gave a nice discussion or a public comment at the outset of this meeting. Stephanie's worked very close with their staff, and Fran of Delaney Laredo has talked to their attorneys. And we've looked at their list of projects, and we know which ones can get done based on existing on-site credit and which ones might need additional credit. And so this housing number, this 5 acre-foot number is fairly close to what Stephanie and her staff came up with based on their review of the Presidio's reasonable near-term needs that they might not be able to do with just the credit you get from knocking down what's currently there. So, we put a lot of thought into these, but they can move, they can change. I think that was the biggest request at the PAC meeting was don't lock everything in and give all the water away. Wait to see what happens.
So I have a question through the chair.
So if I may finish.
Oh,
Let
sorry.
Director Evans finish, and then Vice Chair, you can come on. Thank you.
Thank you. Arlene, were you able to find the list of members?
I have it. This is for the Policy Advisory Committee.
Right.
Marianne Leffel from the Airport District, Patricia Lintel from Delray Oaks, Bill Peak from Pacific Grove, Ian Ogle, Seaside, Dave Potter from Carmel by the Sea, Tyler Williamson from City of Monterey, Marianne Carbone from City of San City, and Mary Adams are representing Monterey County.
Thank you. Thank you, General Manager, for clearing up and answering my questions. I'll reserve my comments until after we hear from the public. Thanks.
Thank you, Vice Chair. You have the
So
floor.
the question is whatever it is, 75 acre feet that you're proposing, that is an additional illegal take from the Carmel River, correct? That's to add to what's already illegal.
Yeah, sort of yes and sort of no. And that's where, presently the effective diversion limit is 8,310 acre feet from the Carmel River. And in effect, the state said, okay, for the next 4 years, or 5, I guess at the time, we're going to let you take more than your legal right of 3,376. Well, we're not taking 8,310 as a community. We're taking about 6,500, but we could take 8,310. And so it's in effect saying for this short period of time, let's not exceed the effective diversion limit. We're not asking to add a new, another 75 acre feet to the effective diversion limit. It's basically saying recognize up to 75 acre feet of increased use at existing service connection, or even ask for the ability to set new meters specifically for this use. But whatever it is, it's basically saying in excess of condition 2, let this small amount of water be reprogrammed back in the system without enforcing condition 2 over it. But enforce everything else. We're not going to exceed the effective diversion limit. So, there's a temporary allowance that we would be taking advantage of. And that's why we felt compelled to keep the ask as small as possible. So it's kind of like try to balance policy objectives. I can tell you that your mayor, Bill Peak, has said that about a year ago, he did talk to the executive director at the Housing and Community Development state, the department at the state, about this particular issue. And this goes back to what somebody said earlier about every city should just go to the state water board and ask. Well, he, at least wisely went to the housing people first, asked them to ask. And his comment coming back was, oh, there's no way the state water board's not going to do this. And so that's over a year ago. That's before the housing crisis was defined in the Senate bill, and all of these things came out. But there's still a realistic expectation that we could go through all of this and get a support group together and still be told absolutely no. And that's why I think there was kind of a circle chasing its tail as the last item on the timeline, because if you get an answer you don't like, do you try it again or do you give up? Who knows? So this is not a slam dunk by any means.
Thank you. Any other board questions? All right, Arlene, let's open it up to the public.
All right, again, if you do have a comment to make, please use the raised hand icon or press *9 on your phone if you're participating by phone.
I've lulled them
Chair
to sleep.
Edwards. No raised hands.
No raised hands?
I see no raised
Okay.
hands.
Thank you. Public comment is closed. Back to the board.
I'd like to move that the district approve the strategy to address water for near-term housing needs.
I heard a motion from Director Raleigh and a second from Director Potter.
Correct.
Discussion.
Chair, if I may start, that's okay.
All right. Director Hoffman, you can start.
I think that we need to recognize that although 8,400 whatever acre feet, or basically 5,000 acre feet above the legal entitlement of Cal-Am, need to be keep in mind the environmental degradation that's occurring of the water being taken above the 3,300 acre feet from the Carmel River. So regardless of the largesse of the State Water Board in allowing additional diversions during the time where the expectation was an alternate supply would become available and thus not cause a health and safety issue, can't be overlooked. Every acre foot above the 3,300 acre feet, the Carmel River is suffering. And you just heard in the general manager's report, or maybe it was Thomas, the thousands of steelhead that are suffering and finding only ponds or pools to survive in until luckily we go out there and rescue them. That is because of the fact that the Carmel River and Cal-Am is taking much more than what they're entitled to take. So I think that we need to be cognizant of the environmental damage that's being done on the Carmel River as a result of not having an alternate water supply available, and putting paper water, or assuming that, oh, we could be taking 8,000, we're only taking 3, so, oh, aren't we the good guys? No, because the river and the ecosystem is suffering. And I just think we need to be cognizant of that. And that should be weighed in everybody's mind in the decision-making process. Thank you, Chair.
Director Hoffman. Who's next?
Through the chair,
Go ahead, Vice Chair.
I'm absolutely in support of housing, affordable housing, but I don't think that is solving the mission statement, the mandate, the legal mandate of the Water Management District. We were mandated to get off the river to solve the CDO so that the whole community can go back to living a normal life. And that's really our objective. So I applaud the staff and the committees from coming up with a proposed solution. But I don't think it solves the overall goal, which is we have to get off the CDO. We have got to solve that problem so the community can go back to living. So I can't support this motion.
Vice Chair. Who's next? Director Raleigh, comments?
When I ran for the district, I for several years before that, there were constant complaints from the public, usually the business community, saying that the district stands in the way of development, stands in the way of housing, stands in the way of affordable housing. Over and over and over again, it was housing, 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 affordable housing largely. And that criticism was leveled at the district over and over and over again. And when I was able to win and get on this board, I felt like we ought to try to find a way, if we can, to help take that blame, to get rid of that accusation and see if there's some way we can help, if there's some flexibility we have at all. I remember talking with Dave. I remember being on several committees that just discussed a number of times about how the condition 2 stood in the way. And then when this housing crisis act of this SB 330 came in, it seemed to me it presented an opportunity to use the state's own argument against the state, basically using it against the State Water Board for their, I think, onerous, if not criminal, interpretation of condition 2. They were micromanaging where there are marginal ways that this community can move forward with some development ideas, and they are micromanaging us to a standstill. And I welcome this opportunity to interact with the cities who have projects, with an opportunity to use our reserve, to be on a de minimis kind of scale of impact on whatever it is we're doing, to use a little bit of the flexibility that we have, and to move forward. And I think what we've gotten so far from Dave and the cooperation of the cities and all the development officers and planning directors and so on, all involved in this, have come to a general consensus that we ought to be pushing this for their benefit, not for our benefit, for their benefit. And I think to the extent that we can be a little flexible, I just hope that we can continue to pursue this. So I'm all in for trying to find a way to make this work for the cities and for the affordable housing needs that we have, and for that part of the population who really don't have much of a voice and don't have much presence and yet have enormous needs.
Thank you. Director Potter?
As the seconder of the motion, George, I agree with you. I think if the state wants to go ahead and tell us what to do at the local level, then they've got to give us the resources they've got to go do it with. And water's been a constraint. If it's water, if it's traffic, if it's zoning, it's a matter of the state telling us what we should and shouldn't be doing, and they're the ones who've got this order on us. So if they want us to go ahead and provide some affordable housing, then let's say them go ahead and take the leadership role and say, okay, this is what you're going to do, and we're going to give you the tools to do it. I've been around a long time listening to debates about development, and even affordable housing. There's advocates out there for it, but it never seems to be quite in the right place for anybody. I think it's time we go ahead and build some affordable housing, and I'd be happy to see us do that. I mean, in Carmel, it will be additional dwelling units. It may be a mixed-use project, partnering with the private sector with some development rights on property. But I think now's the time to say, okay, state, you want us to do this, and you give us the tools. So let's throw it right back at them and say, okay, we're willing to do it here. What are you going to do for us? As far as future water goes, perhaps they go ahead and give us a premature or a pre-allocation on a project that gets approved. If pure water monitoring gets approved, which I hope it does, then we can go ahead and do like they did with the Peralta well and get an allocation for water from that project. But those are the kind of things we need to be creative in, and I think now is the time to be as creative as possible when it comes to affordable housing. I was originally concerned about the number that Carmel had asked for. We'd asked for 10. We're being pared back to 4. But then I realized, okay, this is only 4 years. This isn't our total buildup. This is only a 4-year proposal, and the chances of us using 4 acre-feet plus the 2.5, we've still got an allocation. That it seems pretty remote that's going to happen. But I think we should ask for as much as we can. I'm supportive.
Well, I would like to just at least make the statement that as long as the state accepts the onus of solving the problem, I would support this. But it has to be laid on the State Water Resources Board.
And to that, I'll be interested to see where the leadership is at the state level on this. Where are our senior legislators on this that are crying about affordable housing, wanting us to do it? But are they going to have the courage to come forward and say to the environmental community, you're going to kill more fish, like Gary said? I don't know. But I think it's time to show some leadership around here. Ask that question, put it on the state, and say, look, you guys put us in this box we're in. We've been doing our best as a community to try to solve it. And now, as I said earlier, the lower income bracket is suffering even more than everybody else. It doesn't seem fair or social.
Director Adams, do you have any comments?
I think I've made my thoughts known. You know, it really is it's a balancing act. You know, the creativity, of course, is really important without question. But listening to my colleagues, I understand that you feel that we have been given a mandate without any tools to do it. And I just don't agree with that. But more importantly, I just see the need of the people who live here now. And we can't ask people to continue to work for us, provide the things that we need, and then not help them be able to live lives of decency. And that, to me, trumps sort of everything.
Thank you, Director Adams. Director Evans?
Sure, thank you. I appreciate it. Everything I'd like to say has been said. Yes, I couldn't agree with everyone more. And Director Hoffman, your point about environmental damage is well noted. And yes, that savings from conservation should go towards the river. But I also feel the need to protect our community. And so I am on board with this. I am excited to see the culmination of a lot of hard work. While I'm still a little sketchy on the chart and how that sussed out, I recognize that that's the last step in the process. What we really need to focus on is getting buy-in from the state on this. And I think, as Dave Potter said, this is where the fight needs to go back to the state and let them figure out how to get their competing mandates to not put us in quite such the bind. I'm also appreciative that you included NPS and the Presidio in this. Even though they were not asked, that you did remember that they are here. They do have people here, and those folks do live out in town, and that if you cannot provide them the water to build projects on post, then those folks that can't stay on post will have to go out in town, and that will affect the available housing for other community members. I do work with people that have a long drive. One person I work with is down in Greenfield, and he would come in every day. That takes a toll on him. It would be nice for him to be able to live somewhere closer. And I know a lot of people have stories like that. So I just want to commend staff for taking this to the point that they've taken it. It was a great read for me. I'm very excited to see this, and I can't wait to hear how our senior legislators feel about this and whether we can get them on board to help carry it through and get some success at the state level. So thank you.
Chair Edwards, if I may follow up, if that's okay.
Yeah, you can have follow up. That'd be your last one, though. Go ahead.
Okay. Thank you. To me, this is not about thinking affordable housing is not necessary. So I just want to make that clear, in that I support affordable housing, and I think it's critical. But it goes back to let's get a long-term, reliable, safe water supply, and then we can do it the right way. I am skeptical, especially when this board has told the water board that desal is off the table. There's a lot of actions that this board has taken recently that undermines the argument of us being really interested in affordable housing. If we really were interested in affordable housing, then we would be putting maximum effort into getting a reliable, safe, long-term water supply. And to me, this proposal doesn't go towards doing that. It's just shuffling cards, moving the ball around, and it's really not where we should be going. We need to have a more holistic, long-term approach. And if we do that, then this issue can go away, because then there'll be enough water for everybody to meet their affordable housing needs. So to me, it gets back to a long-term water supply, and the shuffling of the cards doesn't get us there, but it just perpetuates the damage to the Carmel River. So thanks for the opportunity, Chair.
Mr. Chair, I'm tempted to call a question on myself, but I just want to make one last point that Molly just made, and that is the preservation of the DLI and the Naval Postgraduate School. They are constantly water challenged there, and if they don't have water for any of their needs, we're going to lose those two very, very vital functions in this community, which are main part of our economy and major portion of our citizenry are the men and women who work at the Naval Postgraduate School and the Defense Language Institute. So with that, I'll call the question.
Well, can I speak on that before
I
you
guess
close
theoretically
me
it
off?
does.
I know you want to shut me off. I should have shut Gary off because he took my time. But
second,
I want to thank Director Evans first for bringing this up. She brought it up last year, and we want to try to get it through this year. I want to thank the General Manager and Stephanie for all the good, and General Counsel for all the good work they doing on this, because it's probably going to go farther. They're probably going to go farther. Dave, especially for getting the PAC back involved in the district. That's one of the big items of getting the PAC back involved in the district so they see where we're going. You know, we're going to say 3,600 acre feet, and some call it paper water. It's water. If I got up to 8,000 feet, I can use. There's nothing wrong with going to the state and asking them for 75 acre feet. Nothing wrong. They can say yes or no, and then we can put Mr. Laredo to work if we have to on that. But I want to thank everyone. But one thing I am concerned about tonight, and y'all need to relay it to the jurisdictions. I didn't hear nobody tonight. I didn't hear none of them. And I hope they didn't fold their tents and go home. Because when we gave that reserve out, it was about 30 people on the call. And tonight, I don't hear one. So you need to tell them, we're going to try to do our best. The reason I'm supporting this is because we got the cities behind us. They're the land use jurisdiction. We're the water agency that's supposed to be going to talk to the state water agency. We're doing it right. But you tell those jurisdictions where you at. You came down here, jumped on me about 5 acre feet, and now I don't see nobody tonight. I want to close on that and call the question.
Director Hoffman,
No.
Director Adams,
Yes.
Director Byrne,
I have to say I'm conflicted with this because I think this flies in the face of solving the overall problem. I agree with Director Hoffman, but I'm going to vote yes for this only because I hope the State Water Resources Board is held accountable.
Director Evans,
Aye.
Director Potter,
Aye.
Director Riley,
Aye.
and Director Edwards.
Yes.
Approve 6-1.
Approve 6-1. Okay. The last item I have is the information item. Number 12, General Manager. Are we on time or are we going to be late on that San Margarita water treatment facility?
I have to exit the meeting.
Bye.
Thank
See
you,
you later.
everyone. Good night.
We're about a month. We're about a month behind.
We're a month behind.
Yep.
Now the public and the board knows we're a month behind. I believe in transparency. That's all the way across the board. All right. Any other board questions? Board members have any questions? All right. I'm going to call it adjourned. Thank you for your time.
Night, everyone.
Good night.
Good night.